conserving blue carbon ecosystems like seagrass, mangroves, and marshlands is important because they store 3 times more carbon than forest and land ecosystems. They also provide jobs and income to local economies, improve water quality, support healthy fisheries, and provide coastal protection. However, it is estimated that half of the global mangrove cover has disappeared in the last 40 years. Did you know Sri Lanka was designated as the global mangrove champion under the Commonwealth Blue Charter? Over the next decade, Dilma Conservation will commit to restore and conserve over 24 acres of degraded mangrove forest in Sri Lanka. We are collaborating with governmental organizations, local communities, educational institutes, and other corporates. We aim to create a replicable model which will restore mangrove and shallow marine ecosystems with socio-economic development by the year 2030. Mangroves are a unique ecosystem, a special ecosystem, and a vulnerable ecosystem. But we can protect the mangroves together.
මෙය ඔවුන්ගේ අනාගතයේ කොටසක් වන්නට ඉඩ නොදෙන්න. ඔබ මුහුදු වෙරළට යන සෑම අවස්ථාවකම වෙරළ පිරිසිදු කිරීමට පුංචි මිනිත්තුවක් වැය කරන්න. ප්ලාස්ටික් සයිකල් වෙතින් පණිවිඩයක්.
The ocean. Our island is surrounded by it. We live in the midst of it. Mesmerizing. Enthralling. Pleasing. Our ocean is unique, a vibrant marine habitat. We have loyal whales who never leave our seas. Turtles who always return to our shorelines. Mangroves sequestering carbon. Dugongs gliding beneath the waves. Seagrass meadows pumping oxygen we breathe. Underwater reefs sheltering marine life. But they're struggling. Coral reefs bleached. our seabeds scraped over by foreign fishing trawlers. We're depleting our marine life through overfishing. Plastic and chemical waste pollution gush into our oceans. Coastal sand is disappearing. Marine animals killed by dynamite. Turtles entangling in goose nets. Ships colliding with whales. Climate change. Global warming. Oil spills. Coastal construction. Ocean acidification. Ocean's life is draining. We need the ocean. Our survival depends on it. The sea around us is now a hotspot for geopolitics, trade, security, maritime ventures, and crime. Our impact on the ocean matters. Our ocean is our lungs, our hearts, our nerves. Without it, no one can survive. We can only thrive if our oceans survive. Let's strive to be the guardians of the ocean. Let us be the protectors, together, for our ocean.
Hi, my name is Muditha Katuwawala. I'm the coordinator of the Pearl Protectors. I would like to welcome you all to the World Oceans Day Summit, where today's session, is on stronger maritime contingency plan under the theme of ocean-based resource economy. World Oceans Day Summit is hosted by the Pearl Protectors in partnership with Marine Environment Protection Authority, Blue Resource Trust, and World Oceans Day Organization. World Oceans Day Summit intends to delve into all aspects of the ocean around Sri Lanka while highlighting key challenges, opportunities, and inspiring Sri Lankans to love and care for our ocean. Parallelly, we have been conducting the World Oceans Day through art competition and exhibition, where 2 days ago, where the deadline for all submissions ended. We are happy to say that we have received more than 1,000 amazing artwork, and our team and the judges are now shortlisting the top 36 winners. We will be announcing the winners on 8th of June at the conclusion of this summit at 5:30 p.m. This exhibition is now the largest virtual art exhibition and competition ever to be conducted. Meanwhile, you can learn more about the summit on pearlprotectors.org. The topic of the session today, I should say, is the most anticipated topic of this summit due to the recent MV Express Pearl disaster. Sri Lankan oceans are home to some of the world's busiest shipping routes and marine traffic. With its unique marine environment and ecosystem, and over 25% of coastal inhabitants, how well equipped is Sri Lanka to manage a maritime accident or an oil spill? We will be delving into what marine contingency plans we have and how significant They are so please keep in mind that this discussion will go beyond the recent disaster and see what Sri Lanka needs to prepare for to avoid such incidents in the future. So to start off, we have some really great guests today. We have, starting off with Mr. Jagath Gunasekara, who is the Deputy General Manager for Operations at Marine Environment Protection Authority. Welcome, Mr. Jagath.
Welcome.
We also have Dr. Dan Gunasekara, Dan Malika Gunasekara. He is attorney at law and PhD holder in commercial maritime law from University of Hamburg. Welcome, Dr. Dan.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
We also have Sachitma Edrisinghe, who is a volunteer with the Pearl Protectors, who recently did a case study on the maritime incidents we've had since 1994. So I would like to request all our audience to send any questions you may have. We will try to answer the most relevant and interesting questions, of course, at the end of the session. Simply add your question to the comment section on either Facebook or YouTube. So to start off, I want to first invite Sachitma. Maybe could you explain a little bit about your research, the case study which you did?
Okay, thank you, Muditha. So good evening, everyone. Firstly, thank you for giving me this opportunity to present my case study that I have done. So I started this case study initially in September 2020 after the Mount New Dam incident as a research volunteer for the Pearl Protectors. Next slide, please. So, of the 20 maritime adversities that were studied in this report from 1994 to April 2021, 12 incidents resulted in oil spills. From pipelines related to offshore SPBs or single point borings. From these 12 spills, only 2 were identified as of Tier 3 spill, that is greater than 100 metric tons. Next slide, please. However, Sri Lanka's waters is home to a very busy shipping route, and 2/3 of the world's oil passes through Sri Lankan waters. And this poses a very great risk for Sri Lanka, as shown by the recent incident of the Mount New Dam. If the Mount New Dam incident with its 270,000 metric tons of oil cargo had spilled, it would have led to one of the largest ship cost disasters in the world, with long-term environmental and economical consequences such as those seen in the Deepwater Horizon spill in the Gulf of Mexico back in 2010, whose effects are still being seen. Taking other countries such as Singapore into account, like Sri Lanka, it is also placed in the middle of the global trade and shipping network. It is placed near the Strait of Hormuz, which is a major maritime oil choke point in the world. However, Singapore sees more prepared than Sri Lanka to combat maritime emergencies, with a higher resource capacity, with specialized and updated equipment to handle oil spills as well as chemical spills, and stronger contingency planning for maritime incidents. Next slide, please. On the other hand, a main point highlighted in the report was that Sri Lanka does not currently have a chemical contingency plan, even though Sri Lanka has experienced 2 chemical-related ship incidents in 2009 and 2017. Moreover, Sri Lanka also has a lower resource capacity dispersed among several stakeholders for oil spill mitigation. Sri Lanka also has only a few specialized vessels, anti-pollution vessels belonging to the Sri Lankan Coast Guard. Finally, the point I would like to highlight is that Sri Lanka is home to a rich biodiversity of marine life, with many fauna and flora that are really vulnerable to oil spills. Therefore, a response plan for the rescue, for the handling, and for the rehabilitation of these affected marine species in the aftermath of an oil spill will definitely help preserve Sri Lanka's marine environment more. Thank you.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you, Sachitma. That was excellent. Like, I'm really glad that you really took the initiative to do this case study. I think this case study can be a tool that we can use in our future, like, planning for contingency plans as well, since this covers all accidents from 1994. Moving on, I mean, if anybody wants to download it and view it, you can always go to pearlprotectors.org/publications, and you can always view the publication that we have, which Sachitna has done. I want to move on to Mr. Jagath Gunasekara. I think you're the prominent person in Sri Lanka when it comes to planning and implementing contingency plans in Sri Lanka. So, can you explain to us about what a NOSCO or a oil contingency plan is, and how is our one being structured? So we will have Mr. Jagath. I think you're on mute. If you could.
Yeah, now it is okay, I think. Mr. Muditha, first of all, I would like to thank Pearl Protectors for organizing this event to commemorate World Ocean Day 2021. Again, we are at right time to discuss this issue. Actually, last 20 years we discussed these issues, and always we discuss these issues. We established that our marine disaster response capability should be established, should be strengthened further. Based on the mandate of Marine Pollution Prevention Act, we have formulated National Oil Spill Contingency Plan to respond any major oil spill in our waters. As earlier presentation, there is high risk to have oil and chemical spill in our water. In order to respond properly, larger oil and chemical spill, there should be some mechanism. Actually, National Oil Spill Contingency Plan is the national mechanism to face any oil or chemical spill. Can you move to the next slide? Here again you can see last 2-3 years we have several incidents. One is Daniela, that is the container ships. There was a fire very close to Colombo Harbor. Second one is New Diamond, that is in offshore area in Batclo, and the MV Erosan, that is bulk carrier very close to Hambantota. Then the recent one, Express Pearl, is still, that ship is in our water, is still posing a risk of oil spill. At the moment, we don't know how much oil is in these vessels and what is going on. That is the real threat we are facing. That is why I earlier mentioned that this is the right time to discuss this topic and aware all people, including policymakers. We are facing risks. We have to have some mechanism. We have to strengthen this mechanism to face the risks posed by this nature accident. Can you move on to next slide, please? Actually, why we need National Oil Spill Contingency Plan? We have national commitments. As the island nation, we have to have mechanism to prevent marine pollution and protect marine environment. This is basically due to the associated risk factors. There are ports in operation, international ship routes in our waters. We provide different kind of ship services. Again, there are sensitive areas. Again, several economic activities which depend on marine environment. That is why we have to have risk factors. One time, due to these industries, we have a likelihood to occur accident and spill in our water. Again, due to sensitive areas and other economic activities, if any accident occur our water, the consequences will be very high. Next slide. Maritime zones of Sri Lanka, you can see this is the exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka. This area is 8 times larger than land area of Sri Lanka. As per the Maritime zones law, we have declared this area as a pollution prevention zone. As a country, we have responsibility to protect marine environment this area and prevent any marine pollution in this area. Please move quickly. These are the risk factors. Basically, earlier presenter mentioned tanker transportation of more than 525 million of metric tons of oil annually within our waters. Again, more than 250 ships passing through our waters every day. Again, offshore single point buoy mooring in operation. Earlier terrorist attack, there was a risk. Bunk ship repair industry. Again, Trincomalee oil tank farm, port expansion activities. Proposed petroleum refinery down south with SPBM, oil exploration, poor technical worthiness of vessels in traffic. These are the possible risk factors. You can see here major shipping routes within our waters. Any moment, due to huge traffic, any moment there can have an accident which can lead to oil or chemical spill in our water. Again, ports, more than 4,000 ships enter into our ports annually. Next slide. Quickly. Ship routes. Here you can see major shipping routes. Again, the offshore oil exploration activities going on. These activities will further increase risks posed on our environment. Please go to the next slide. Again, the sensitive areas. One side, there is likelihood of high frequencies to occur oil spill. In other side, sensitive areas, due to this sensitivity of our coastal areas, any spill can have a high consequences to industries and marine environment. These are the information of past oil spill in our water. There were a few chemical spill accidents. 2009, MT Grand Bar at Trincomalee. Again, the one palm oil spill in our waters at Dockyard. This palm oil considered as HNS, hazardous noxious substances. With this incident, we are in the process of upgrading our oil spill contingency plan to respond HNS spill in our waters. Next slide, please. This is the mandate. Marine Pollution Act number 35 of 2000 has given necessary mandate for Marine Environment Protection Authority, prevention, reduction and control of pollution in Sri Lanka. Again, one of the main function of this authority to formulate and implement National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. As a lead agency, we have formulated National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. In the event of oil spill, as a developing country, we have to use all available resources in Sri Lanka to respond any major oil spill. Please move. Again, the tier concept and how we reduce risks of oil spill damage. As I mentioned earlier, there are likelihood and consequences very high. Again, international community has taken several steps to reduce oil pollution risks. However, so far it is very difficult to bring these risks into the zero due to human error, due to different kind of climate change. Any moment we can have an accident at sea which can lead to major oil spill or chemical spill. At the event of major oil spill, we have to implement National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. Taken into account these risk factors, we have prepared our initial contingency plan in 2095. Again, we have amended time to time this contingency plan with the support of Norwegian government. 2003, we updated contingency plan and other necessary tools, and we obtained Cabinet of Ministers approval in 2004. After that, as per the lesson learned from different accident event and oil spill event in Sri Lanka, we have improved several times our contingency plan. What is contingency plan? Basically, it outlines the arrangement for responding to oil spills in the marine environment with aim to protecting it from oil pollution or where this is not possible to minimize such effect. As you know, it is very difficult to prevent oil spill accident and their impact. Hence, we are trying to prevent, but if we cannot do it, we are going to minimize such effect by implementing National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. This is the tier concept. As you know, based on the size and the locality of oil spill, we can divide into T3 tiers. We have clear-cut definition here. If the oil spill is less than 50 metric ton, we call it tier 1. If the oil spill is between 50 to 100, we call it tier 3. If the oil spill is more than 100 tons, we call it tier 3. Tier 1 oil spill, all potential polluters like Port Authority, ports, dry docks, SPBM, like this terminal, they should have their own contingency plan with sufficient amount of oil spill compact equipment to face tier 1 oil spill. If it is more than their capability or if it is more than 50 ton, we have to implement National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. But however, we don't have enough resources, hence we have declared more than 100 ton oil spill as a tier 3 spill. At the event of such a major oil spill, we need regional and international assistance. Please move to the next. Again, as I mentioned earlier, these are the legal provisions as per the section 39 of Marine Pollution Prevention Act. All agencies, ports, harbour terminals, and these agencies should have their own oil spill contingency plan, and they should obtain MIPA approval for such contingency plan. As per these provisions, we have promulgated separate regulation to enforce these provisions in our Act. Again, this is the when oil spill occur, potential polluters should implement their plan, or if it is a tier 1 spill, or if the oil spill is beyond their capacity, they should inform us. We have to implement National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. Again, the response strategies are basically we have two type of response strategies here. Basically, mechanical method, containment and recovery, shoreline protection, shoreline cleanup. Containment and recovery at sea operation. Basically, at sea operation, we need high-tech equipment like boom, skimmers. If you don't have sufficient amount of equipment and if the weather or sea condition is not good, we cannot depend on the at sea response. We have to have shoreline protection and shoreline cleanup strategies. Basically, in our contingency plan, as all other contingency plan, we have given priority to mechanical method. Again, there are chemical method, oil spill dispersant. We have oil spill dispersant usage policy. Based on that, we have to do net environmental benefit analysis. After that, if we think that the net environmental benefit analysis shows that the use of dispersion is beneficial, we can use dispersion, but there are several limitations. We cannot use this dispersion near to the sensitive areas, as well as if the depth is less than 20 meter, we cannot use this dispersion in our waters. Please move. Responsibilities assigned. There are several ministries involved. We have given responsibilities to several ministries, and there are several agencies. As per the Marine Pollution Prevention Act, MIPA become lead agency. There are different agencies under the section 2 of this NOSCOP. We have given different responsibilities to different agencies. Next slide, I list down these agencies. You can see large number of agencies. Here, DMC as an umbrella organization for the disaster management, they are coordinating with us to implement National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. There are other agencies who have equipment and who have capability to deploy these response strategies. There are different kind of agencies, including government and private agencies, involved in when we implement National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. Please go to the next slide. Response phases based on the contingency plan: notification, evaluation and activation of plan, joint response operation at sea, joint response operation on shore, demobilization. These are the process phases of the response phases. When there is an oil spill, we have to notify someone, then we have to evaluate whether this oil slick is going where, what we have to do, whether there is any impact. Then based on that, we have to prepare our incident action plan. Based on that, we have to respond at sea. If it is not, if it is difficult, we have to operationalize onshore response strategies. This is the response organization, basically. Notification process and agencies involved. At the event of oil spill, if it is a major one, we have to inform local agencies as well as international agencies. Next slide, please. Then the source of oil spill, based on that, we have to evaluate what type of oil spill, what is the risk, where it is going. We have to use different kind of tools developed by different kind of agencies, like oil spill trajectory model, sensitivity environment maps, or chemical spill model, like that, to have a very good idea where this slick is moving, what type of environmental impact are going to be there. We have to evaluate. Then based on the evaluation, we have to have incident action plan. Next one. This is again the response strategy. We actually adapted incident command system. Basically, most of the countries use this incident command system as a response organization. This system basically developed by USA. We adapted officially incident command system into our contingency plan. This is basically after 2006, we realized that we have contingency plan. There are several agencies, but in the event of oil spill, it is very difficult to get other stakeholders into response. Then we have formulated a special mechanism. At the event of major oil spill, we can go to the national environmental, we can declare national environmental emergency. Then we can obtain all agencies support. This is the termination. We have laid down procedure how we are going to terminate national response operation. These procedures laid down in the contingency plan. However, contingency plan laid down different kind of procedures. In practice, it is difficult to face major oil or chemical spill incident in our water because we don't have sufficient amount of oil spill response equipment. Other than that, we realize that there is no sustainable funding mechanism to strengthen our oil spill comeback capability because like other countries basically use polluter pay principle, potential polluter pay principle, and they have separate fund to strengthen their oil spill comeback capability. Australia, they have imposed levy on ships which arrive to their ports. India imposed levy on oil. They have separate cess. Like that, different countries, Finland, New Zealand, even a small country like Tonga, they have their own mechanism for funding of oil spill contingency management. But here in Sri Lanka, we don't have such a mechanism. We proposed a funding mechanism since 2012, but still we couldn't establish oil spill contingency funding mechanism due to some difficulties getting approval from other agencies. Shipping is truly international business. We think that basic rule established by other countries, internationally accepted mechanism like polluter pay principle, potential polluter pay principle, we can adapt and we can improve our oil spill comeback capabilities. Not only oil, recent incident shows that there is high risk of HNS spill, chemical or hazardous noxious substances spill in our waters. Therefore, without strengthening our oil and chemical spill contingency mechanism, we cannot be a maritime hub in this region because one incident can devastate all economic activities in coastal areas. Therefore, we should further strengthen our oil and chemical spill response capability. There are several difficulties we have faced during last 10 years period. We don't have sufficient amount of legal provisions. There are compensation legal regime. We have only party to two international convention, basically CLC and PUN convention. Other than that, we have not party to the Bunker Convention. Even though we party to the civil liability and the PUN convention, we don't have comprehensive national legislation. These are the obstacles to have a good mechanism to face oil and chemical spill. Even though we implement national oil spill contingency plan, we can mitigate some amount of this impact, but we cannot totally mitigate impact. There should be a compensation mechanism in line with international convention. We have to improve this section in order to have a proper strengthened national oil and chemical spill contingency plan in Sri Lanka. That is, I think, that should be a national priority. When there is such a disaster, all people pointing the finger to MIPA. There is agency, they should do it, they should do this. But without strengthening our capacities, national capacities, we cannot tackle alone to such a disasters. Therefore, we should increase our capacity without delaying this thing. We should amend our act. We should have a funding mechanism. We should train our people. We should purchase sufficient amount of equipment. Without that, we cannot face this threat. That is a threat. Any moment, there can have a major oil and chemical spill that can have a vast impact to our marine environment as well as maritime related industries as well as human health. That is essential.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mr. Jagath Gunasekara. So that presentation really covered a lot of information. But I want to now ask the question from Dr. Dan. I think in the presentation also it went to the aspect of talking about the international aspects of contingency. So I want to ask this question from Dr. Dan. Looking at globally, what are the other contingency plans available? I think you're on mute. Let me see.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, and let me start my presentation. So, basically, I would like to touch upon the area of, what we have to start with is the damage that is caused. Because whenever there is an incident of oil spill, let's concentrate on the oil area, and then I will take you all through the other areas of pollutants. So oil is what we consider the major threat of pollution, because oil as a pollutant is used for the propelling of ships, as well as it is being carried like Satitma mentioned also, like more than 2/3 of the oil trade passes the Sri Lanka's southern sea routes. So if you look at the Bunker Oil Convention, the most recent one that has given the interpretation of a pollution, you can see that the pollution means loss or damage caused outside the ship by contamination resulting from the escape or discharge of bunker oil from the ship. Whenever such escape or discharge may occur, provided that the compensation for impairment of the environment other than loss of profit from such impairment shall be limited to cost of reasonable measures of reinstatement actually undertaken or to be undertaken, and the cost of preventive measures and further loss or damage caused by preventive measures. And the preventive measures, as defined in the Bunker Oil Convention 2001, means that any reasonable measures taken by any person after an incident has occurred to prevent or minimize pollution damage. Now, if you look at these two basic interpretations, you can see how wide the interpretations are, and that it covers a huge spectrum of scope that can put all the problems that we are now even facing this moment after the oil spill, the incident of excess pearl. And we are even at a danger or a time bomb that if there is any kind of bunker oil on board, then we do not know at what stage that it might even explode. So therefore, taking these considerations to our head, let me take you through to the next slide. So oil spills and contingencies. Now these are very important because these are really the proactive measures that any government in the world, any country in the world have to adopt, because readiness is very important. Now, one of the main key accusations in the present catastrophe in Sri Lanka is that whether we were ready for this, So in order to do that, the contingencies play a huge role in making the country ready for such a catastrophe. So international and national legal instruments dealing with oil pollution contingencies are available. And at international level, we know that due to the much work of the International Maritime Organization, many legal instruments have come into being. I was talking about the hard laws, but also the soft laws like the guidelines and recommendations, and like, for example, the INDG code and so forth have also come into being in order to strengthen this area. Sorry. So therefore, now the next point for any country is to get these international treaties ratified in their countries and then have accession to the international legal instruments for better implementation. And there are two sets of legal systems in the world. One is called the civil law system, and the other one is called the common law system. Even though Sri Lanka is considered a mixed law system, we are very much with the common law traditions, especially in the case of international laws, adoption in or accession to the national legal system, where we have to follow the dualist approach and bring the international law in line with our parliamentary statutes and produce legislations. Without these legislations, we can't rely upon that in a case of a case, because the court will always implement what is there in our local legislations, because that's the governing law. That's the law that has the force. So proper internal management by coastal and port state control are very important. Now, in the present catastrophe also, why we are really panicking is because we are hearing many kinds of stories on the management system, whether the management was effectively carried out, whether the management was done according to the procedures, like I remember in the MV New Diamond, if Jagath can correct me, that MIPA was not given the opportunity to conduct proper investigation at the initial stage, even to go near the scene and conduct the operations. This is because of the poor management system that we are having, because MIPA, for example, is the coastal state control in this country. So whenever there is a kind of oil threat, oil spillage, then MIPA is the first person that has to go there, conduct the proper analysis, and then participate in the management system. Now, even in the present calamity with Express Pearl, again MIPA was sidelined. I know, right? That the Port Authority was handling this, and this is because of the absence of the procedures in the management system or handling coastal and postal control. These are very important areas that our country has to understand. Then the duties on the part of flags and maintenance of adequate insurance through P&I. This is also a very important area, that there are duties vested on the flag states. The flag states are responsible for any Now, I just, while this presentation was going on, I received a text message that the News First report that the Attorney General Department has reported to the court that the email communications by the captain of Express Pearl to the local company in Sri Lanka have been erased, right? So this is extremely a crime, because if the captain has reported these things to the local company that we are experiencing a leak, right, and erasing these emails will hinder the implementation of the proper law applicable, and also like this misinformation or lack of information made difficulties, posed difficulties for our country's administration to act wisely and act promptly. So therefore, the flag state is quite responsible, and then also to have the proper insurances in place on board, on ships on board, to meet different types of pollution damages that may cause, oil, HNS, or whatever. Then strengthening national courts and handle post-compensation mechanism is also very important, because this is what we are really facing in Sri Lanka, that our national courts are not completely geared fully, since there are certain gaps in our law, especially with the fact that, number one, international law have not been properly implemented in Sri Lanka under national legislations, and on the other hand, secondly, even the prevailing Marine Pollution Prevention Act have weaknesses in applying the law with regard to acts of crime or acts of civil wrong. So therefore, it's very important to strengthen the national courts with proper legislation being provided for the courts aid to aid the court. Then preparation of protocols for the use of future incidents and the lessons learned. This is a very important thing, because if you look at the history of oil pollution or whatever the pollution damages, the incidents that have caused in the world, like you take Torrey Canyon, Amarco Cadiz, Exxon Valdez, Erika, all these incidents, there are incident reports that they maintain what sort of steps that they have been taking right from the beginning to the end of closing down the file upon proper compensation being taken. So these are the things that we can really use in order to learn the lessons. So and also thereafter follow whenever there is another catastrophe arise. We don't have to panic. We don't have to think, oh, is it Navy who is going to do this, or is it Port Authority who is going to do it, or is it MIPA coming to do it? You don't have to panic, because all these things are in proper procedures, the proper guidelines are there. So it's very easy for anyone to follow by going through the lessons learned. So next slide, if I go to next slide, that's my last slide actually. I only made 3 slides. The Sri Lanka's readiness, whether Sri Lanka is ready to take up any oil pollution damage. And we are, as I mentioned earlier, we are on a kind of a time bomb now. If there is oil on Express Pearl, then we are on a time bomb. So National Oil's contingency plan, the NOSCOP, plays a very important role. And this is something that we have to implement. This is something we have to teach everybody who is engaged in these kinds of scenarios, maybe cleanup, maybe preventive measures, anything. I think Jagath can remember that even I came, when this was made, I came and gave a presentation to the entire MIPA, and there was a workshop where we trained the people, we trained everybody on the preparation of disaster management plan, then the participation of disaster management center, and then on the president's powers to direct to take immediate action and coordinate with know-how strategies. These are very important things that are underlined in the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan on NOSCOP. Then the areas that are covered in it, in line with the Marine Pollution Prevention Act, both the territorial sea and the exclusive economic zone. This is very important, because you see that a pollution damage need not always be occurred in territorial sea, even if it occurs in the exclusive economic zone that Jagath was talking about, the pollution prevention zone or the pollution buffer zone, we can say. Both these maritime zones are included in the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan in order to combat any kind of oil pollution damage. As we saw even in the MV New Diamond issue, in the MT New Diamond, what happened was that the ship faced the maritime casualty not in the territorial sea like the Express Pearl, but in the exclusive economic zone area. So we have this coverage to cover the exclusive economic zone. Then adequate equipment and personnel. It's very important also to have this facilities. Now we are talking about the lack of equipment and how to face this. And Jagath also pointed out that we need to have the proper equipment to be equipped to handle such a calamity. The MIPA or the Port Authority or the Navy or Coast Guard, whoever is going to do this exercise, must have the adequate equipment and also the personnel who are more trained to do it. So, and also they conduct drills from time to time, thinking that some incident might happen. So employment of suitable equipment, preparation of the damage assessment. This is very important again, because in this particular scenario, in the Pearl Express Pearl, we still have to do a proper analysis estimation of the damage using the scientific and geological and the natural scientific data and so forth. Then again, then the national and international support of expertise. This is also very important. I'm also, every time I'm pressing the fact that in Sri Lanka we have very small experiences in doing so. Our people may be equipped, but not equipped hands-on. We need to get foreign expertise, the people who are more associated with these kinds of former incidents that have happened in other parts of the world, and thereafter get their expertise on doing this. Otherwise, we sometimes may lack the knowledge of attending to these things quite quickly. So with that, I think I end my presentation. I'm open for any question. But as Muditha at the beginning put to me the question, how the international other countries work on these NOSCOP areas, actually to say that we are mainly focusing on the oil spill contingency plan. Jagath also mentioned and said that we need to put in like the hazardous and noxious substances here. But I would say that let the oil contingency plan remain as it is. We have to become a party to the HNS Convention. We have to become a party to radioactive conventions. We have to become a party to wreck removal convention. We have to become a party to ballast water convention. We have to become a party to anti-fouling. Everything. We have to become a party and make this our legal system more eligible to handle any kind of pollution scenario. Then for each and every respective polluter, we must have its own special and specific contingency plan available. Thank you very much, Muditha, for giving the opportunity.
Right. No, of course. Thank you, Dr. Dan. I think there were some really key information that you mentioned there also. We had two really comprehensive presentations here. Now, I want to go a little bit into the questions. Now here, I think since there's a time limitation also, I'd expect a short answer maybe. I want to start with Mr. Jagath Gunasekara. Just briefly, maybe if you can highlight, tell the audience. Now we saw this incident. We know, it has far detrimental impact on our, not just on our marine environment, but on the society as well. Has this level of incident happened before? What was the worst before? I mean, the past so many years. Can you maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, that is a good question. Basically, there were several incidents in our waters. MV New Daniela incident, New Diamond incident, and earlier Thermopyscera incident in 2007, 2012, again some incidents. But this event become one of the major event in our waters, because not like earlier, there are media, including social media. This become a huge event due to publicity. But when we compare with other incident, this is some major incident in our waters. But this is we have some equipment but we should know that there are limitations. Sea condition we should taken into account. Even though most of the countries have sufficient amount of compact equipment for the at sea operation, due to the sea condition, this sea condition, we cannot use any of this equipment. Even developed countries, they cannot activate their contingency plan at sea response. This is the practical situation we face here.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Jagath. Dr. Dan, I want to talk about like enforcement or monitoring of vessels coming in. How can Sri Lanka further enhance the monitoring of vessels entering Sri Lankan waters which has hazardous material? Is there a protocol which requires to declare the cargo before entering our exclusive economic zone?
Not really in the exclusive economic zone, but at the moment we do have a proper system in place when ships enter our territorial waters. Because you can't do such exercise as you suggest in the exclusive economic zone, because exclusive economic zone is free for navigation. It is only when a ship enters to the territorial waters of Sri Lanka or any country, any coastal state, that the coastal state controls can come into effect, especially with regard to navigation part. But however, if there is a case of a oil pollution instead of pollution threat or whatever, then like I told you, the coastal state authorities can do so even in the exclusive economic zone. In our law, it is provided, like I said, in the Marine Pollution Prevention Act for paper. But now, when a particular ship comes to our territorial waters, that the law of the state apply to the territorial waters. So therefore, the quarantine checking, the custom checking, and then the port control checking are all to be placed fully, and there is legal competence to do so. There are procedures to do so. Now the question is, like I again tell you, where is this management? Management is lacking here. We are, even though our law is there, even though the procedures are very much in place, this thing does not take place practically. As far as I understand, that even in the case of Express Pearl, that no doctor has got into board at the beginning. That's the first case. Secondly, the custom officers must go on board to check whatever the things. Had the custom officers gone, they would have checked on the dangerous goods that had been on place. Then thirdly comes the Port Authority. So if the practical things are not occurring, there is no use of having a law in place. And but going further to what Muditha you asked, like whatever we can take now, the shipping industry has so developed that more modern technologies have come into being. Like for example, in United States, they have the scanners to check, what are the containers that are coming into their water. After the September 11 attack, they employ these scanners to check. And we also have followed the same technology. We do have certain scanners, but only in the port. But they have outer port, they have in the waters. Whenever a particular ship comes into their waters, they can scan the contents in the containers, and they can act accordingly if any kind of threat that is being posed to the country. So these are the things I want to end up my answer with this, that with the development of technology, we have to go ahead, we have to absorb that new technology into our country, because there are developed countries that are doing it. Not only developed countries, but also underdeveloped countries are doing it. So why not us? We only have to acquire the equipment. Now, just one point, Jagath mentioned about the difficulties in a stormy weather to employ the beams. I do not agree with this if we have the proper equipment in place. Right? Other developed countries and other very strong countries, they do have some kind of things. When this particular incident happened, some company from India contacted me, because thinking that I'm a national authority, I'm an official of a national authority in Sri Lanka, saying that there are these new pipelines that are being made, right, to absorb the oil in case of a bunker spill. And it was the first time that even I heard this kind of technology. Then I directed it to Tony. I gave Tony's number so that they are the people who are in charge of such a thing. To introduce such a technology. These are very important. That's what I said, that we have to acquire the modern technology. We have to go hunting. What are the internationally available equipment that are there? We can't just say that as far as we know, there are no such equipment. There are new equipments being made. We have to go hunting for these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, that was really interesting. I think both of you mentioned that the NOSCOPE right now is sufficient, but the Sri Lankan NOSCOPE facilitates marine animal rescues when an oil spill happens, or if a chemical spill happens. Like, what's the? I want to direct this question at Mr. Jagath, if possible. Mr. Jagath, you could.
There are several annexes to the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. One is newly developed annexes is the wildlife response. In the event of oil spill, there can have impact on wildlife, wild animals. We have to restore this impact, and we have to have our own guideline. Based on the Flora and Fauna Act, basically when there is such an impact, Wildlife Department should enter into the response. At the moment, we have developed a guideline for wildlife rescue based on the international guideline.
Okay. Dr. Dan, do you want to add on to that?
Not really, because I think now if you're talking about the whales in particular, as a creature in the wildlife law in our country, there is a lot of much talk that is going on. I know that the protection of the whales are very important at sea, and we need to reroute our southern sea ship route. And I have also done certain research. I have write papers on that thing. But this rerouting thing has to be very careful, because we have to look at the economic impact that may be posed in such a scenario. And also we have to be very careful on who are these proponents of such a strategy. Is it whether really on the idea of protection of the wildlife at sea, or whether there are any other kind of economic ideas to block or destroy our national economy. So we have to be very careful in doing that. But if we can make these marine sensitive areas like the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, how they have done, right? So we need to create these reefs or barriers or breathing areas, all kinds of things. But it might take a long time. It will need more strategic implementation. But I think that's a much more better way in going forward, because nobody in this country, I mean, especially the policymakers, will not take a policy to reroute to protect the wildlife, but we'll look at the other alternate of doing this thing. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Dan. I mean, I think we've seen in other countries, especially when oil spills happen, a lot of seabirds, a lot of marine life do get impacted. So the reactive action by a lot of countries is to somehow rescue them. So it is a valid question to ask, like, can it be incorporated into the contingency plan? But I want to move on. Like, I want to move on to the legal side. The countries such as Singapore has strong and globally recognized arbitration and legal mechanisms. How can Sri Lanka enhance its legal capacity to enhance, global arbitration? Dr. Dan, if you can answer that question.
Yes. Now, at the moment, we do have arbitration system in Sri Lanka. Several arbitration centers are there, and these arbitration centers will not select the matter specifically, whether they are like general or maritime also. So I know one or two arbitration centers are equipped to handle maritime arbitration, and I'm also engaged in maritime arbitration as a private counsel and also as an arbitrator. So there are, but however, it's not enough if we are to make ourselves as an international maritime arbitration hub in the region. There are like maritime arbitration hubs in our region, like the Singapore one, the Dubai one, the Hong Kong one, like that. So if we are to do that, we need to come up with some internationally agreed maritime arbitration tools, how to first of all set up the arbitration center, then to have the particular rules of case hearing and all. So we need to have some very good international rules in that. So we need to like absorb the international rules that are being used in order to do that. But I want to go further up, like now arbitration is somewhat becoming unpopular because of the arbitration process seemed to be quite too legal, too costly, and time consuming. Now the newest trend is towards mediation involving the parties, but they can have legal representation, but the rules and procedures are not so strict. Those rules or procedures are not so strict, and therefore mediation is a more adaptable solution in the time to come. And in countries like US and UK and Europe, they are really promoting mediation as a more user-friendly means of dispute settlement process. I come to the end of this answer. Muditha, can I answer one of the chat? Some participants I see have asked this particular question repeatedly. Now they're asking in the Express Pearl matter. Couldn't have Sri Lanka set ablaze the entire ship rather than saving it and making the wreck available? Now there is no difference of setting the ship fully burn and disappear, because anyway the hull will be there. It's not easy to burn the entire ship and make them kind of ash at sea. So, but on the other hand, we have to protect our coast and the port area. This is why if the ship fire exaggerated, and suppose that it went to other adjoining maritime property, could be the sea, it may have devastated the marine life more, and then the other maritime properties around, like boats and ships that are there. Suppose that the ship came, fortunately not, but if not, the ship came to the port of Colombo, it would have been another disaster like Beirut, right? Because even in our port area, we have the dangerous cargo in the port itself. So this particular fire would have caused much more damage to the dangerous cargo that are there, and even certain other buildings in Colombo, including the president's house, may have got blasted if there was such a blast. And so some may argue with me still that the entire burning would have caused less damage, but we are in that case, we were not sure whether even the bunker oil was there or not. Now, some say that the authorities say bunker oil might have got burned, but we are not yet sure, we are not yet certain. So
Yeah.
we could do any investigation on that. Now, suppose that even the bunker oil had burnt out, it wouldn't have been that much of a damage, but still there is a kind of small damage at least. But the authorities look it in other way, that it's our duty to protect the maritime property as long as we can. Try to protect the maritime property, because it's our duty also, inherent duty, mutual duty towards the ship owner also, to protect the maritime property as much as we can.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Dan. I want to ask Mr. Jagath Gunasekara, do you want to respond to that part? I think Mr. Jagath, your camera is off. Let's see. Okay. Mr. Jagath, do you want to respond, or do you have your own? Do you have opinion on that answer?
Not that answer. Basically, what happened? Express fuel incident. Basically, when there are fire, as a coastal state country, we have to respond the ship captain, and we have to take basic arrangement to save the ship's cargo and ship crew. That is why our port authority have taken actions and they have assisted. Then what happened, basically when there is such an event, basically ship owner come into the agreement with salvage company. They have entered in the agreement, one of the major salvage company in the world, they have given task to salvers. Then with salvage support, they cannot do it due to several reasons. But Sri Lankan authorities has given full support to mitigate the accident, and there wasn't any oil spill. So far, we don't know whether there is oil or not. Again, the earlier mentioned that at sea response, based on the technical expertise available, and even ITOF, NOAA, and other expert agencies mentioned that if the sea stage is higher than the 3, it is very difficult to have a at sea response, even containment and recovery. We use boom as a physical barrier, then we use skimmers to recover oil from water. These are the basic at sea response. When the sea stage is higher than 3, any country with their best equipment, they cannot do it, because even though if we use this response, there will be a damage to our equipment, that will not be a technically feasible action, oil spill response action. In such a event, even though there is a compensation mechanism, we have to have technically feasible oil spill response strategies. Without proving if it is not technically feasible, we cannot claim for our action. That is why he mentioned there are Indian Coast Guard vessel at that site. ITOF was there. We have some contact with other expertise in the world. All of these agencies and experts mentioned that at sea response will not be feasible, even though there are some equipment with us, all equipment in standby process. In the event of spill, basically oil spill, we can use, but it is not technically feasible because sea condition is not favorable to use this equipment. That is the basic technical things. I know that most of the experts are telling that there are equipment we can use this way, but it is not feasible. They should know that there are limitations, even though there is boom matrix called. With the sea state, there should be some element. We know that pre-board and the draft of this boom, when there is high waves, we cannot use this equipment. Basically, at sea response is not feasible. You know that most of the oil spill occurred in even developed countries. They couldn't mitigate, they couldn't use they are all booms to contain and recover. That is the situation here. We should know this limitation. We should taken into this limitation technical feasibility basically. We have to taken into account, but most of the experts, they are telling that if we have this thing, we can do it. But even though we should hunt, but we have, as a developing country, who is giving priority to strengthen its comeback capability. We are proposing new strategies without extra burden to national treasury. We can have our own mechanism using international principle like polluter pay principle, potential polluter pay principle, to have a sustainable funding mechanism to strengthen oil and chemical spill capability of Sri Lanka. These are the things we have to do. We have to learn from this nature incident. We should develop our capacities. Without that, not only the technical, also human resources, also law enforcement or legal regime, we have to further strengthen. Without doing that, we cannot face such a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jagath. No, that was quite an interesting discussion. So we were talking about the resources, but another resource is also human capacity. Now, the importance of being proactive rather than reactive is also is a priority that I believe we can also consider. Now, last year we saw the empty New Diamond, and it was there was a point where we were all preparing for the worst, for a oil spill. Now, I want to ask Mr. Jagath Gunasekara, how can Sri Lanka improve on providing oil contingency and mitigation training for coastal communities and youth? So on the coastal areas, do you think it's important that that needs to be done, just in case if oil spill happens, and then if the government authorities or like the resources, the human resources are unavailable, if you have provided that training, that could potentially be of a good resource. Do you agree, or what?
Yeah, there are several, basically there are several areas we can use volunteers. Also, you may know that sometimes annually we conduct national oil spill drill. Since 2016, we normally conduct national drill. Again, we conduct regional drills, and the regional level, port level drills we conduct. Before these drills, we basically provide training to all concerned parties, how to use equipment, how to carry out shoreline cleanup activities like that. There are several areas. Other than the concerned government agencies, volunteer agencies, non-government agencies can involve. Basically, wildlife rescue, most of the countries, volunteers and non-government agencies basically involved in these areas. Again, the beach cleanups, basically most of the time, due to constraint of equipment and the sea condition, we have to depend on the shoreline cleanup activities. Earlier incidents in 2016, there was a Amarcha incident at Galle in 2007. More than 400 volunteers per day work. More than 16 days we work together to clean the shoreline. We have provided training to district level to several sectors, including non-government agencies. But with the COVID situation here, even the beach areas polluted with plastic noodle, there is possibility to use volunteers and the other agencies support, but due to COVID restriction, still we cannot use volunteer support. That is the basic thing. But I think that taken into possible risk factor, we have to have good mechanism to train volunteers to engage in such a situation. That is very much essential because we have only few government agencies who can provide manpower to such a disaster. Some countries in major oil spill incident, more than 30,000 people engage in beach cleanup activities. Even Korea in 2010, more than 30,000 people engage per day beach cleanup activity. If there is such a disaster, we have to use volunteers, we have to use other non-government agencies like pearl protectors. They have some human resources. There are young talented people. Several areas of the oil spill response we can use these resources. We are in the process because basically due to the COVID pandemic situation, even though more than 450 kilometers, some patches in the coastal areas polluted with plastic nodules, we cannot use here volunteers due to the COVID restriction. At the moment, we are only using MIPA staff and 3 manpower to clean up our coastal areas polluted due to plastic pellets or nodules released from the above vessels. So far, fortunately, there is no major oil pollution, but we don't know still. We have given necessary directive to ship owners, salvors, and other parties to assess the situation, take appropriate action as soon as possible to ascertain whether there is oil. If there is oil, take immediate action to repump oil from the that ships. These are the situation. This is the situation we are facing today. I hope that in near future, volunteers can join into these different part of oil spill response activities. We should aware them. There are technologies, there are tools we can use. Even shoreline assessment process. At the moment, we are surveying shoreline using special formats. We can use volunteer here. Again, the wildlife rescue. Basically, most of the countries volunteers engage in. These are the areas we can use volunteers. I think that you have to have some mechanism to strengthen our partnership further and have some mechanism to protect our coastal and sensitive areas.
Thank you, Mr. Jagath. I think we are running out of time as well. So I want to quickly go to one or two questions from the audience because I think there's a lot of comments coming up. There's a lot of questions coming up. There is a question like asking, you spoke about sustainable aspect. Why can't we now? We got a reimbursement from MT New Diamond. Why can't we utilize that to enhancing our firefighting resources and the Coast Guard capabilities in Sri Lanka? Is that a possibility or?
Basically, for the salvage and
sorry, I meant to answer real quickly. If you can, like a short answer, maybe.
Yes, we got, I think, 450 million approximately. From that, 52 million to MIPA, basically for the pollution response activities, and the other part for the salvage activities. Yes, this Sri Lanka Coast Guard is one of the agency we use for response at sea. They have some equipment, but further we should improve this capacity. If we have national stockpile, if we can develop national stockpile, any agency who have responsibility to response at sea to this oil or HNSC spill, they can use this equipment. But we are in the process, we have less than 50 million. But if we want to use these resources, we have to use government procurement procedure.
Right. Dr. Dan, there's a question on what punishments or like what rules can be implemented on harmful, dangerous goods if in ships get exposed to marine environment. So basically asking what kind of penalties can be put on to companies.
Now, under the Marine Pollution Prevention Act, we have the penal section. There are, in case of a pollution incident like we saw in the New Diamond situation, there is a penal section, and the penalty could be like vary between 4 million to 12 million rupees. 15 million rupees. So last time in the New Diamond, the court ordered 12 million rupees as a penalty. Now, that is in the case of New Diamond because it happened in the territorial waters. So only the Marine Pollution Prevention Act could be invoked. But in the case of Express Pearl, it's different because, as I told you, that Express Pearl happened within the territorial waters of Sri Lanka. There are provisions in the penal code, penal sections that can be used. There are sections in the Merchant Shipping Act where you can use, also with regard to unseaworthiness of a vessel, the penal sections are there. So then there are small acts that are there, but most importantly, the penal code here and the Marine Pollution Prevention Act. Now you can see that if this particular news is correct, the what that we received just now, right, the Attorney General has reported to the court that the local shipping company has erased the emails received, right, hiding the oil leak, then that is going to be a severe charge under the penal code, right? So the penal code can be used, the Marine Pollution Prevention Act can be used in addition because anyway it has this penalty between 4 to 15 million rupees. So I think those are the main things that can penalize. I'm talking about the penalizing of under the criminal procedure, not the civil side, but penalizing. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you. I think we can with that note we can conclude our session. We've gone overboard with our time, but I think we had a really interesting topic. So the topic we discussed in length about the contingency plan we have and what we can do in the future as well. Right now, the country is facing a disaster, a marine environment disaster, as well as economical disaster, and it's unfortunate that we, as the Pearl Protectors, as well as other organizations who really want to volunteer to go clean up, we are unable to do that, both because of the COVID restrictions and because of the high toxicity in the beaches right now. So we hope to see in the future, in the coming days, what we can really do. So if anybody is interested in volunteering, you can register as a Protector of Pearl volunteer, and we will keep you updated on how we can take action. It is now time to conclude this session. I would like to thank our exclusive patron, the EU delegation to Sri Lanka and Maldives, the summit patron, Dilma Conservation and Keels, and supporting patron, Fast Cycle. I hope all of you enjoyed and learned more about this session, about this topic, the concept under the contingency plan of Sri Lanka. And do please stay tuned for the rest of the summit, as we intend to talk a lot more about our oceans and the conservation. We will be starting tomorrow at 2 p.m. This is to remind that tomorrow is also the World Oceans Day. So thank you. I want to thank both the panelists, Dr. Dan Malika Gunasekara and Mr. Jagath Gunasekara, for joining today's session, and I wish you all and the expert panelists a very good day ahead. Thank you.